makes have you got? What makes brands?
Some cheap versions of the Squiers. So
are they Squiers or something else?
They are something else. I'm not sure.
Is it Encore?
No, it's not. I think we've got one,
right.
And you would have thought it would have been nice to play, but it's not because no one has bothered to set up right. But we've got loads and loads of guitars, and I hate playing all of them because they are just so horrible. The intonation is wrong, the action is too high, and they just sound absolutely horrible.
That's a shame. The guitar, as Thomas well knows, the guitar that... I've got a few guitars in the house. I've got 3 of these, obviously, these things that we're doing this with. But I've got an old Squier Strat from 1983, sorry, 82 actually. A Japanese JV series, right? No, this is for nerds, you see. There's a nerd community who nerd about the Japanese-built Squiers because they were very sought after now. So I have a 1982 Squier Japanese-built Strat, which is probably worth about £1,000 or something. But I wouldn't sell it because I bought it from new way back then and I've had it for all those years.
After you tried to sell it.
I tried to sell it years ago, yeah, but when I was in trouble in a foreign land, that kind of thing. Anyway, less about that, the better. So it is a beautiful guitar, but I found myself recently playing...
every other guitar?
Well, an 80 quid, mostly, like this morning, sitting outside playing an 80 quid vintage brand guitar. And I have to say, if you get a chance to buy or try a vintage brand, they're made by the same people that make the cheap Encores or Encore guitars, but they are fantastic. They're made to a really high spec. And so my favourite guitar at the moment is something I paid 80 quid for and met somebody down in St Leonard's on Sea. Met a guy on a station and picked it up. But it's a fantastic guitar. So that 86 quid or 88 quid that cost. So the point being, of all the guitars I've got, including ones I've made myself from kits, that one guitar is probably now my #1 favourite. And it's smaller, yeah. It's my favourite, and it would, to be honest, it would outplay, if I'm not a fantastic musician, but if I was a gigging musician, I would probably much prefer to play with that one above things costing 200, 300, 400 quid more. So the whole point of this is learn how to do this stuff with your guitars, and you can turn these first guitars into something you'd like to live with and keep. There's no reason why you'd want to get rid of these things once they're set up correctly, other than to provide Thomas and me with a cheap supply of starter guitars. So we got away without having to cut the film. We're nearly there.
Yeah.
So the game we're going to do now is we're going to level frets, or check the fret level on this. And the reason we do that is, again, when somebody puts a guitar together in a factory cheaply, the quality control probably takes a look at the frets and sees that they're all cut to the right length, none of them are falling out and so on. And providing they're all hammered in pretty much correctly, I mean, you still do that end one, yeah? Yeah. Providing they're all hammered in correctly, then the guitar should play all right, and out it goes, out into the boxing department, and they chuck it in a box and stand it out on a lorry or a shipping container or wherever. But of course, the heights of these frets, the way they sit on the fretboard, have minute variations. And when they do have minute variations, what you would hear it as is a kind of buzzing somewhere along the neck when you're playing a string, and everything else can sound good until you get to a certain place, and then it just feels, you can hear either buzz, or sometimes when it's worse, a high fret will choke off a note in front of the one you're trying to play. So you might play, for example, a G. You might be thinking you're playing a G, and because the fret in front of the fret you're trying to fret is too high, it'll actually play a G sharp and then even as you move up, it will stay playing a G sharp, and then it will go to A on the next fret. So high frets either cause buzzing, or at worst they choke off notes and give you two notes the same and basically rob you of one of the notes on the fretboard. So what we do here is to make this really play well is to check the heights of the frets. And that's what I'm going to get Thomas to do. And when I first did this, I was really nervous about it, because you look at this and you think, actually, if I scrape away at this with a file, I could ruin this pretty quickly. But yeah, you know, you could. But the principle of this, if you're going to do this, is always do it less is more each time. You know, as long as you go slowly and think what you're doing, you won't make a mistake. So the principle of this is you've got a fret rocker, which is a piece of steel, or no, piece of aluminium with 4 different sides, and they get shorter. Long one, next one, next one, next one. And the purpose of checking your frets, and this is where I like my camera, zoom in. This is so cool. We're not benefiting from the light, but we do have a way of doing this where I can make it stick on so that the light points at the same direction as the camera. But anyway, the idea of this, Christ, I'm going to break it now. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. The idea of this is you take, let's say we start down here. You need to cover 3 frets at any one time. So down here, 3 frets will be that side. Obviously up here, that covers a load more.
Yeah.
So you change as you go up. You need to always have 3 frets underneath this. And what you do is you start with 3 frets, and you're basically measuring the middle one, and you put it on there, thinking, right, you can't do that one because there's not one on the other side, so you can only really start with that one. You put it on there, and your job is to hold lightly each end of this and see if it rocks. And if it does, it's very subtle, you can hear it.
Yeah.
Right, so once you can hear it rock, you test it a few times, make sure you get your thing hanging off the end, and then the next thing you do is you see, does it rock all the way across? If it does, you get your A marker. It could actually be, let's start with, yeah, that's, we can do that. Yeah, it's not very permanent. I've got rubbish markers. I've got some in my bag indoors. But you say, okay, that has a problem all the way across it. So just mark it there, and then also, while you're there, mark it on the paper as well. And the reason you mark it on the paper is later when you come and scrape this off,
it files off
the marker, and then you won't know which ones you've done. So this will tell me, throughout the job we're doing, this will tell me that whole fret needed something doing. So if you want to progress from one to the next with your kit and see what we get.
So there's a little bit there.
Yeah, go right to the end then, all the way to the end.
Yep.
So in that case, you want to just get a sense of where it begins.
Oh.
Don't worry. A mark from where it begins. Doesn't have to be exact, but as close as you can guess.
There.
Okay. So you know which one you're working on.
Yep.
Mark in black first where you think it goes from and to, and then double up with them.
Yep.
And then move on to the next one. Now with this, whilst Thomas is doing that, I'll just talk quickly about the 2 different ways you might do this. When you come to doing fret levelling, there are loads of expensive tools you can buy for every aspect of this operation, but actually you can also get away with very few. And unless you're somebody who's going to set up a guitar shop, you really aren't going to pay 100 quid per file.
Yeah,
And that's what happens, is we rub this off. So just mark that up again. Actually, you know what? Mark it with the green, and we'll come back to it, right? Make sure you know where it is on the green, and then we'll come back and do them all black again. Mm-hmm. So you have a number of things, a number of options for doing this work. I'm just going to try and make this camera stay in the right place. Stay. It's a little bit heavy with a microphone attachment, so I probably need my bit of string. Right, so Yeah, a number of tools you can do, or you can do a low-tech way. And I was always, I was a bit nervous of doing the low-tech version until I saw somebody online show me how to do it, and it was very encouraging because it got me in a mindset that you really don't need all this precision stuff. You do need to be careful. If you go at it, you know, ham-fistedly, you will make it worse than it was. But if you go at it carefully, slowly, logically, and you can use pretty much low-tech things to do it. To mark the green's the important marker for now.
Going over it in black and then going through with the green. So
the point of this is when we find a spot that needs levelling, right, we're going to take down that fret in that spot. And we're only going to take it down possibly by, I don't even know the measurements, but it might be 1/10 of a millimetre might be all you need to do. And we'll take a bit off and we'll check with the rocker. If it's still rocking, we'll take a little bit more, and we'll keep going until it stops, to the moment it stops rocking. Now, if you've got a guitar neck which has got loads of uneven frets, and even if you haven't, even if you've got a neck that's got a few uneven things but you've got lots of wear on the frets, a fret file like this can be really useful because it's really straight and easy to use, but it's quite unforgiving. So if you've got lots to do, no problem. We'll put this on, we'll scrape it down, you'll hear it, take off loads of material. We'll take a bit off pretty much all the frets, but we'll know that because of the flatness of this, we'll know they're all going to be level in relation to each other. A thing I didn't mention at the beginning, but we've already done, is before you do this job, you have to make sure the neck is got no relief in it, which we did because we straightened it out. There'd be no point trying to level frets when the neck's got a bend in it, because you'll end up cockeyed when you put it back on the guitar and straighten the neck. So you can do it with a tool like this, which kind of starts to get expensive, about £25 or something. And there are a whole bunch of other files you can get like this. Or if you find yourself in a situation where there's only a few frets with a few bits that need doing, you could either have a little file, which I don't have, or, as the low-tech guy showed me, you can take a piece of sandpaper and a block, and he did it, the guy I'm referring to did it with a bit of 320 sandpaper. I'm going to just cut it with this a minute. 320 sandpaper and a 9-volt battery. That was his low-tech block, and I remember thinking, oh no, you can't, surely you've got to have some clever device to do it. And his explanation was quite sensible. Look, what are you doing? You're taking a bit of material, a small amount of material off a fret, and all you're really doing is you just need something that will take steel or whatever it's made of, silver or whatever, take it off. And this at 320 is quite somewhere mid-range. It's not too coarse to take it too much off in one go, but it's also coarse enough not to leave you there trying to do this forever. So this, with a 9-volt battery and a bit of whatever you've got, it could be wrapped around one of these sanding, polishing rubbers, but a piece of sandpaper wrapped around a block, and in a minute we're going to have a go at doing that with that. And that plus that is all we need for this job, and a pencil. We don't even need an expensive fret rocker. You could make that yourself out of a credit card, which is probably a good thing to do with a credit card. But you know, in fact, a credit card with its two sides, almost. I think the guy I was watching doing this on video on YouTube, I think he proved that the two sides of the credit card were enough to do all the frets.
Yeah. Which
I thought was a bit strange. But even if you had a credit card, you started with a credit card like this, and you had a long side, a short side, and then you could cut a third side in it. Even if you had three sides, you cut a third side really straight. And you know, you can make a tool yourself. So don't be fooled into thinking. It just needs to be straight. I bought that because I'm probably going to do a lot of this, so it's worth having something that lasts a long time. So we've made our kit ready for Thomas when he's done his marking. You get a feel over time for how, when there's a real lot of play, you know, compared to some where you feel there's just a little tiny bit, and some will be miles off. Sometimes people recommend what you can do is if there's a fret that's miles off, you could just tap it with one of these soft hammers. I'm a bit nervous about that because once a fret's glued in place into a neck, the last thing I want to be doing is kind of whacking it with a hammer and unseating it in any way. It's probably, my worry would be that it would be more likely to come back out than it would to stay in. So I'd rather leave it where it's comfortably sitting in the guitar as I got it, and make an adjustment to the top of it. A bit fiddlier, more fiddlier. Yeah, you've got quite a bit of rock in there.
Mm.
Thomas is all right because he's got his glasses on already, and he's not got the kind of old man's plague, but I have to have a separate set of reading glasses to do this kind of work so that I can get up close, which is great for about 8 inches away, but anything other than that doesn't really work. Is that all the way?
No.
There is a risk of making the sound more complicated than it needs to be. There is an interesting thing that happens. It's once you've marked up, identified where you think the frets are high. Can I use that as an example? Sometimes what happens is, like on this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but Thomas he's got on this fret here, he's found the edges of this fret appear to be high, and on the next fret up, he's found that the middle section, almost a mirror of those two,
yeah,
the missing chunk of those two is high, which tells you there's some sort of relationship between those. The minute you do one, the other will change. Mm. And that's one of the things about this. So this is a guide, and what will happen is we will start at one end or the other, and we'll check as we go again to make sure. So once we've done the first scrape of this one, got it down level, we'll check the next one like this to see, is there still a problem? If there isn't, we'll just miss it. Because what you might find is taking that down there will solve that. I can't explain exactly why that is, but there is a relationship between them. As long as you don't just plough on unthinking, you'll be all right. We'll check as we go. It sounds mighty complex, but it's not. It's kind of sort of common sense.
I think there might be the simple one with this.
It's fine.